What's up, Met fans? Welcome back. Talkin Mets with Rob. How's everybody doing? Welcome back to Mets Hot Stove Live on a special day, Thursday, 2-hour special, possibly 3 hours. We'll see how it goes. How's everybody doing, guys? We're going to get right into a lot of MLB updates about the lockout. Supposedly there's some news. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Mets trade proposals that we've been hearing over the last week or so, and other trade proposals that we can probably come up with to help this Mets team get to the level that we want to get up, and that is a World Series title. Also, we'll talk about free agency. What will the Mets do and still need to do when the lockout ends? We will go over possible lineups. If the Mets season started today, what would the lineup be? We will talk all about it. I'm going to go over a couple more things that I'm going to do with the channel that might excite some people that support the channel. We'll go over that. I'll do that first before we get into more of the MLB situation and the Mets situation. So I'm going to say what's up in the chat too, everybody. Let's see who we got here today. We got John, we got Stony, Steven, Nelson, Jason. What's up? What's up? What's up? News King in the house? I'd hope so. But how's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's having a good Thursday. I know if you're in the New York area, you had to deal with some rain and a little bit of snow. So it was a nasty little day outside. But when you talk baseball, it's warm, spring, beautiful weather. When you talk baseball, it's always warm when you talk baseball. It's always fun. Let's hope that, what's up, Joseph? How you doing? Let's hope that the MLB owners and the players come together and figure this stuff out, because there is a fail-safe day where if they get a deal done by this day, by that date, it will look good that spring training will start on time. That means the season will start on time. And as baseball fans, as Met fans, we want to actually start on time, because Met fans are excited. Baseball fans are excited. You know, this is technically the first year where there probably will be no COVID restrictions, no COVID issues, no delayed games, no canceled games. At least we hope so. So, you know, over the last 2 years, you know, with 2020 being a shortened season, with 2021 cancellations, delay of games because of COVID, let's hope 2022 is a lot better. And if the MLB players and the owners can actually stop being a bunch of crybaby billionaires and millionaires, they can get a deal done and we will all be happy. Ricky, how you doing? MLB Joey, how you doing? So the first thing I want to talk about is about the channel. So I was coming up with new ideas because, you know, doing a YouTube channel, sometimes, you know, just doing videos, just doing live streams during the season, off season, it really doesn't matter. But as soon as, you know, you do so many videos, so many live streams, sometimes it can get stagnant. Sometimes it can be repetitive. Sometimes it can be boring. That's every YouTube, no matter how many times, how many views you get, how many times you do it, how many people enjoy it. You always want to start new things on the channel that will enjoy the channel, enjoy the videos, enjoy the live streams. So I came up with a few ideas. Since it is only January and there's about 2 weeks until the end of January, and we go into February. Irvin La Potencia, what's up, guys? How you doing? Thank you guys for tuning in. So I was thinking, what could I do during the off season where it can have a lot of fun towards Mets baseball and baseball in general? So I thought of this. Why not do simulations on my PS5 with MLB The Show for the Mets 2022 season? So it won't be every day, but it would be videos probably every other day or maybe a couple of games a week where I will simulate games with my own commentary, by the way. So we'll have a little bit of fun with that. So I'm going to speed up the game process, the simulation. No, it's not going to be a slow, you know, broadcast 9-inning game. It's going to be a fast play 9-inning game, probably between 30 and 40 minutes. per video. It's a simulation, so you can watch the simulation of each and every game from opening day to the end of the season and possible playoffs. I will actually do commentary of the game while the simulation is going on. So I'm going to try to set up all that. It's going to be a recording. It's not going to be live. It's going to be a video that I'm just going to do with the simulation, with my own broadcast, and we will have fun doing that. Hopefully it catches on. People enjoy it. People like it. And we can actually have fun when I go live during the off season and talk about what was the record in the simulation on MLB The Show. What was their overall record? How far did they get into the playoffs? Did they win a World Series? We can talk about all that and see by the end of the Mets season in 2022 what's their record and how far they actually gone in the playoffs. So hopefully that would be a lot of fun. So the first thing I got to do, I got to set everything up, right? I got to update the rosters and do all that stuff on the website and on the game and everything like that, and make sure everybody, all the teams, or at least the Mets, are ready to go with the players that are on the Mets currently. Obviously, there'll be some changes during the offseason depending on the lockout. We should have a lot of fun doing that. So hopefully you guys would enjoy that. I'll probably set that up probably in the next week or so. So not only will I be doing videos regarding Mets content, free agency, trade rumors, and all that fun stuff, and the live stream that I do every Tuesday. Today is Thursday, but I will definitely be doing those videos and those live streams, but also putting those videos on my channel as well. So let's hope that everybody enjoys that, and we'll see how that goes. All right, guys, so let's get down to the little bit of Mets talk that we heard. There was a couple of rumors over the last week or so regarding Josh Hader and Luis Castillo. So Sports Illustrated, SNY caught on to, or not really, it's not really a rumor, but it's kind of a opinion and basically a conversation piece stating that what would it take to get Josh Hader from the Brewers to the Mets, and what would it take for the Mets to get Luis Castillo? So I try to follow a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of different teams like Brewer Nation, and there's another one. It's called the blog Red Machine, which is the Reds fan page that people started, and Brewer Nation with a fan page started as well. So I thought it's fun to look at that because it's interesting not just to see our perspective, but what do teams, fans of other teams, think of those trade proposals? Because let's be honest, when a guy like Josh Hader, who's one of the best closers in the game, gets traded, you want to hear the reaction of those fans as well, because it is interesting to see what's their perspective, not just our perspective when it comes to benefiting the Mets. So we're going to get to that real quick. I'm going to put up the first trade proposal that was said on Sports Illustrated, and The Athletic actually talked about it as well. And this is from Brewer Nation's Twitter. They did a poll, and it basically says this: a trade suggestion made to Jim Bowden by a reader of The Athletic MLB. Brewers would trade, and I will show you just now. I'm going to share the screen right now, and we can discuss it. So just give me 1 second while I share the first proposal. Alrighty, there we go. And it's going to pop up just now. There we go. So I'm going to get rid of my face and put that up there. So that's the trade proposal right there. Brewers would trade Josh Hader to the Mets in exchange for Jeff McNeil, Dominic Smith, and right-handed pitcher JT Ginn. Now, this was a similar deal that I came up with in one of my trade proposals, but I didn't have that much. I took away JT Ginn. I added another player as well, but this is the first trade that the Brewer Nation put up a poll, and obviously a big percentage of Brewers fans thought this would be a good trade for them. 67% Brewers should say no, which was interesting to me. I'm a little shocked by that because let's be honest, for a closer, you're getting an everyday starter in Jeff McNeil and a possibly pretty damn good first baseman in Dominic Smith, and you get a top 5 prospect in the Mets system in JT Ginn. So, why wouldn't the Brewer fans want to do that? I don't know. But let's be honest. If the Mets made this trade, what do you think, guys? Do you think you would be happy with this trade? I don't really know. I'm a little bit skeptic to give 2 everyday starters and a top 5 prospects in the Mets system for only a closer. Now, if somebody else comes as well, I don't know. We can look at the Brewers roster. What would the Brewers give up besides Josh Hader? Maybe it would be one of their 5 starters. Maybe in the middle of the rotation, end of the rotation. But I mean, I don't know. I think that's a really tough trade to look at. In my opinion, I think that's really hard to come to grasp with, because if you really think about it, I feel like Jeff McNeil is going to get traded, but to add a top 5 prospect and Dominic Smith, now you're getting rid of 2 players that could potentially be a part of this Mets roster, even though I don't think Jeff McNeil is going to be a part of it. Dominic Smith is still a guy who can step in and play left field and play first base to give Pete Alonso a day off. And what it seems like there's going to be a DH, Dominic Smith can be very useful when Alonso might be DHing a lot more than fielding. You got Dominic Smith to play first base, who is a very good first baseman. So, when it comes to this trade, are you willing to give up McNeil, Smith, and Ginn for just Josh Hader? I say no. I think that's too much, and I'm not really sure why the Brewer fans would be up in arms, and over 67% say no. And if you really look at it, it's almost 1,200 votes. When this came out, and this came out 2 days ago. So almost 1,200 votes, and over 67% said no. And which is shocking to me, because I think giving up a closer who can be very volatile, even though Hader's been very good basically every year since he came up to the pros, I think it's a good trade for the Brewers. But as a Met fan myself, I do not like this trade. Now, if it was a JT Ginn and maybe just one of the 2, either McNeil or Smith, I might think about it a little bit more. But in the Brewers' perspective, I mean, do they really have a first baseman? They really don't. So Dominic Smith would fit perfect for them. And Jeff McNeil can be their everyday second baseman or right fielder or left fielder. So I don't really know why they wouldn't want that trade. I don't know what the Brewer fans are thinking there. But in my opinion, I say no. And I see people in the chat saying it's too much. John said that. Stoney said that. It's too much. I agree with that. I don't think that's really a trade that I think the Mets should do, or why they want to do that. I have no idea. So that is the first trade proposal that we are looking at and going to talk about. So again, Josh Hader to the Mets for Jeff McNeil, Dominic Smith, and the top 5 prospect in the Mets system, JT Ginn. I say no. I don't think so. But again, these are proposals. Look, when there's a lockout, there's no rumors by any teams, any players. The only news you've been hearing is that basically every freaking player in Major League Baseball are going to Scott Boris's agency. You just heard Carlos Correa go to Scott Boris's agency, and Jonathan India of the Reds just hired Scott Boris as well. So that's the news, and this is what people come up with, because what else is there to talk about until the lockout is over? So that is the first trade, Josh Hader to the Mets for Jeff McNeil, Dominic Smith, and JT Ginn. I say no, and it seems like overwhelmingly everybody's saying no in the chat as well. So that is the first trade proposal that people were talking about. The next trade proposal that we were talking about, and this one is from the Blog Red Machine that tweeted as well, but it was on Sports Illustrated. It was on SNY. A lot of people talked about it, and it's this. I'm going to share it just now, and we can discuss. Alrighty, here we go. So here's the other one, guys. A proposed trade for Luis Castillo. Now, let me just move the banner. Sorry about that. So that's the trade. There's a trade that popped up that they were talking about was this, right? They talked about Luis Castillo going to the Mets. It's in here. And they talked about it must include a top 50 prospect just to get the ball rolling. So if you want to talk about the Mets top 50 prospect in Major League Baseball, it's probably going to be Ronnie Mauricio, Brett Beatty, who's off limits, Alvarez, who's off limits. So they talked about in this piece stating that the Reds would give the Mets Luis Castillo, the Mets would give up Ronnie Mauricio and Jeff McNeil. Now, this is a similar trade that I talked about in one of my trade proposals in one of my videos. I would do that trade. Bring in Luis Castillo, who has 2 years left on his deal. You give up Jeff McNeil, who seems like he's going to be out of here, and Ronnie Mauricio, who's basically a guy who's blocked in every position, especially if the Mets get Chris Bryant. I think he would be a great trade piece, and I would be willing to give up Jeff McNeil and Ronnie Mauricio for Luis Castillo. It's just that simple. I think it's a good deal. I think that's a respectable deal. I think it's a fair deal. You got to give up to get, and I think that's a fair deal, especially when it seems like the Mets are going to trade Jeff McNeil, and why not bring a big arm that you can put behind Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer? So Luis Castillo for Jeff McNeil and Ronnie Mauricio. Would you guys be willing to do that deal? I would. But it really depends if the Reds would take on that deal. So that's the other deal that I saw that I was like, let's talk about that. Exactly, Stoney. Hey, Hayden, what's up? Yeah, La Potencia. Let me throw up that comment really quick. So he is Jekyll and Hyde for sure. But if you look at the splits from first half to second half, now he had almost a 5 ERA in the first half. He dropped his ERA all the way down to under 4, around 3.98 in the second half. He was excellent. He had around a 2.3 ERA in the second half. He was excellent in the second half. So even if you get something in the middle, if you don't get the worst in his first half and the best in his second half, if you get in the middle where he'll have about a 3.4 ERA, you remember, you're not looking for him to be the ace. You're looking for him to be a number 3 starter who can pick up the innings from Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. Remember, they're going to be behind these two guys. You're not looking for him to be the ace of the staff. The Reds are looking for him to be the ace of the staff. But it's clear that they are rebuilding, and I think we can get him with Jeff McNeil and Ronnie Mauricio. You get him an everyday starter in Jeff McNeil, and you get a top 3 prospect in Ronnie Mauricio. I think that's actually pretty fair, to be honest. Especially the Reds know they're not going to extend Luis Castillo, so they might as well get what they can from them. And there was something else that caught my eye over the last couple of days. There's been a lot of talk, so I see people want to agree with that trade. La Potencia, let's see. Rob, what are your thoughts on the McNeil for Gleyber Torres rumor? Yeah, I heard that. I look, the only reason why I would do a trade like that is only because it would be a no-brainer. In my opinion, Gleyber Torres is a better player than Jeff McNeil. But there's another thing that I like about it. Gleyber Torres is under control for a couple of more years than Jeff McNeil. And he's a lot cheaper than Jeff McNeil over the next couple of years. Jeff McNeil is not making big money. He's making like $2 or $3 million. And Gleyber Torres is making a little less than that. But you can't pass up a younger player who plays basically the same position as Jeff McNeil. So I would do that. I would do that trade because he's younger. He's cheaper. He has a lot more better upside than Jeff McNeil. I think if you put Gleyber Torres at second base, I think he's fine. I think mentally he'll be back in focus. and he would be a very, very good hitter. And I think he just was too focused on worrying about shortstop. I'd do that trade in a heartbeat, in my opinion. I would absolutely do that trade. So I think that's a good thing. And there was another trade that I'm going to put up a banner really quick. Just give me a second, guys. Let me just. All right. Give me a second. Let me type it in so we can discuss this. It also it involves the Yankees as well. All right. Let me just put it up. All right. Here we go. Aaron Judge to the Mets. This is another big topic that, excuse me, that a lot of people were talking about over the last couple of days, especially if you listen to WFAN. A lot of people think, and Sweeney Murdy even talked about this on the Tiki and Tierney show on WFAN in the midday. They talked to Sweeney Murdy, who is the Yankees reporter, and they asked him straight out, is Aaron Judge a priority to extend Aaron Judge? Oh, are the Yankees prioritizing Aaron Judge to an extension? Sweeney Murdy said no, that is not a top priority. And this is why I think that Aaron Judge is getting lowballed and basically screwed by the Yankees, because I think he's going to get so pissed off that the Yankees are not even talking to him or even thinking about extending him because they have a lot of other issues. Judge wants to get paid. He's going to be, as a free agent, he's going to be right on the edge of 30. And people are like, could the Mets find a way to steal him and sign him if Aaron Judge decides, I'm not going to sign an extension with the Yankees, I am going to free agency and get every dollar I possibly can? And when you hear of every dollar you possibly can, you think of Steve Cohen and his unlimited money. Now, I'm very 50-50 with Aaron Judge. He stayed healthy last year, and you see the damage he can do. He's a very good player. He's a right fielder, which, let's be honest, we could use. With Marte being center field, I have no problem moving Nimmo left field. You put Aaron Judge in right. Now you have a pretty darn good outfield, and Aaron Judge has a really good arm. He's a very good defender, and we know he can hit if he's healthy. I think he's very healthy. If he could stay healthy, I think he'll be fine. But, what are you willing to give in a deal? 6-year deal to a guy who's going to be 30 years old? That's going to be in the outfield. Now, again, we are going to have the DH. So, you can look at that as well. Take a couple of days off of Aaron Judge not in right field, put him as the DH, and you're okay. But I do think there is a lot of ways the Mets can go about it when it comes to Aaron Judge. The Yankees are never going to trade Aaron Judge to the Mets. It's not happening. So it's only about if Aaron Judge decides that he felt like he was insulted by the Yankees not trying to extend him. Maybe he just wants to go to free agency, not just to screw the Yankees, but to try to get every last dollar possible and no team-friendly deal if he just does an extension with the Yankees. I would give him a 6-year deal only because I feel like if he can stay healthy out of 4 out of the 6 years, I think we'll be okay with him. But again, that's just wishful thinking, and it would be hilarious. And Lord knows, Yankee fans and all the Yankee fans that bought Aaron Judge jerseys, and all of a sudden he's a Met, that might give a little knock to Yankee fans, and we always like that, right? So I would give him a 6-year deal. I wouldn't go beyond that. But if you get 4 really, really good all-star years from Aaron Judge, 4 out of the 6, I think that's a win. But again, it's wishful thinking. I thought it'd be interesting because people were talking about it. They also talked about the Gleyber Torres for Jeff McNeil. Again, I don't think the Yankees would do that. They would look, if the Yankees would do that, Yankee fans should be protesting in the Bronx in front of Yankee Stadium, because that's just a stupid trade for them. But it's good for us. So again, there's a lot to think about when it comes to that, but it is nice to see that anytime you hear of a disgruntled player, a team not going to extend their player who's an all-star, right away, a Mets conversation pops up because the Mets have the money now. So that's what's good about it too. So now that we talked about Aaron Judge, now we're going to talk about the MLBPA will give a counter proposal to the MLB owners very soon. Whenever that was earlier in the week, John Morosi, Ken Rosenthal, Joel Sherman, all them guys said that MLBPA is going to give a counter proposal to the owners soon. Now, it would have been nice if it was this week, but nothing has been given yet. I'm assuming they're probably going to give it to them Monday or Tuesday of next week. And look, it's the 20th already. If they give them next week, you go into almost the end of January. And there's a fail-safe date that everybody's talking about, and that's February 1st. If they don't come up with a deal by February 1st, it's going to be very hard for spring training to start on time. Again, if a deal gets done by February 5th, you might have a situation where everything will fall into place and spring training will be started on time. Because pitchers, sometimes you will get a few players, pitchers and position players show up around this time in Port St. Lucie to start getting warmed up, preparing for pitches and catches the first and second week of February, and then you get the full roster that shows up in the early parts of February for spring training. And then we'll have spring training games. Like I said, I'm going to Port St. Lucie. I'm going to spring training. I'm going to the first game at home in Port St. Lucie, game 1 for spring training. So I hope that goes down. That would be fun. But again, it all depends on if these damn owners and players stop being a bunch of babies and get a deal done, and we don't have to worry about it. Stony MLBPA is the Major League Baseball Players Association. So it's basically their union that is making doing the negotiations for him. Tony Clark, and who runs the MLBPA union for the players. So we hope that goes down. Let's hope the proposal, because there's two things that they agree upon. They agree upon the 14 playoff teams and the DH. That's already a given. Both sides agree to that. The two biggest problems that is going to be probably a problem is the service time for rookies who come up that are stuck in a 6-year team control contract. So they have to be 6 years before they can become a free agent. The players want that reduced to at least 3. I don't think they're going to get it to 3. I think the owners would budge and say 4, which I think is fair. I don't think they can cut it in half. 3 is a little iffy. Just think, if Pete Alonso came up and service time is only 3 years to become a free agent, Pete Alonso would be a free agent. So that would the Mets would probably sign him, but that would suck. So I think 4 years is reasonable for service time before a player becomes a free agent, because 6 years is just ridiculous, especially when teams can manipulate service time. If they bring them 2 weeks after opening day, they keep that extra year of service time. I think that needs to go out of the way. I don't think that's fair to a player who gets screwed in that way. I think 4 years is appropriate, is fair to the teams and the player. And the other thing is player salary when they come up. Right now, the player salary when they come up to the pros in their first year is $550,000 or $575,000. The players are trying to get it up to $600,000 or $625,000. I think they'll probably come somewhere in the middle and go to probably like $585,000, closer to $600,000. I think that's something that they can work out on. Those are the two biggest things. And, there's not really much, The salary luxury tax is another thing. Players obviously wanted to go make it a little higher than what it is now. I think it's 225. I think players wanted to go 250, and that's because the higher the higher the luxury tax maximum, say if it's 260, 270, the more money teams are going to spend and more money the players get. So that's something I think I guess that would be a good thing. But again, and then they also want the Players Association wants teams to have a salary floor. Like you don't have the Pittsburgh Pirates have a $30 million payroll and they get the luxury tax money from teams who went over the luxury tax. They get that tax money because they're under the luxury tax. And some of these owners, like the Indians, the Pirates, you can go on and on about really bad teams who the owners pocket the money. When I was in Pittsburgh last year, you talk to a lot of Pirates fans, and they said we got one of the most beautiful ballparks in Major League Baseball. It's a great fan base. If you look at the Steelers, you look at the Penguins, they are hard-nosed, big-time fans. They're a big fan base. They're a great fan base. And their owner is one of the cheapest owners in baseball, and he pockets all that money. And it doesn't make sense. So the problem with the salary floor is that if you set a salary floor, there's a possibility that the owners will want a salary cap, a max. And obviously the players don't want that. So a salary floor is going to be a problem. In my opinion, what they should do, instead of doing a salary floor, they should do this. The same way they do a luxury tax. If a team goes over a certain amount of salary, payroll, I think it's 225. If a team goes over that, they pay a luxury tax. What I propose is this. If a team does not meet the minimum salary payroll, say $70 million, right? If they don't reach that mark, they have to pay a tax that goes into whatever fund you want to talk about. If it's a rookie fund, a minor league fund to pay more money to minor league players, something like that. Something that money will go to benefit players that are not making a lot of money, like in the minor leagues. Something like that. I think that's what should be done. If a team does not go over that threshold and they stay under the $70 million minimum, they have to pay a tax as well. And I think that's one thing that can be done as well. So hopefully the MLB Players Association comes up with a proposal that is somewhat fair, and then the owners can counter that. But again, in 11 days, it's February. So let's see in next a little under 2 weeks, they can come up with something, because I think February 1st is kind of the deadline. Even though if they get a deal done the first week of February, maybe no spring training games would be missed, but we have to wait and see on that. So let me just check the comments really quick. Somebody talked about this right here. 14 teams is way too much. I agree. I think it's fine the way it is now. You got 3 division teams, 2 wild card teams. You play a wild card game, even though I think the 2 wild card teams should play a 3-game playoff. I think the 1 game, even though it's exciting, I think it sucks. You play 162 games, and if you are one of the 2 teams, you play 1 game, and if you lose, you're out. Now, some people like that because it's competitive. It's, it gives an emphasis on winning your division, and I think that's a good thing. But yeah, 14 teams is a lot. Just think, you're adding 2 more teams to each league. So what do you so you're gonna have 4 wild card teams? That's insane. You're gonna have, what are you gonna have? You're gonna have the 4 wild card teams. You're gonna have 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, and then whoever wins those games plays each other in the final wild card match. I don't understand that. I think that's crazy. It's fun, because there's more baseball, and you can't complain about more baseball, but that's a crazy amount of teams. I don't know how they would do that. Yeah, and like a lot of potentially said, it's half the team. That's a little insane to me. So I don't really know why they would actually want to do that. But again, they're trying to, you know, give a little bit, when there's more teams that make the playoffs, players get a bonus for making the playoffs, winning the divisional round, winning the wild card round, winning the pennant, winning the World Series. They all get bonuses. So that's why it's probably going to happen, a 14-team deal, a playoff deal, because both sides win. Teams get more money for playoff TV contracts. They get ticket sales. Players get bonuses. So that's why it's probably something that they can agree upon. Let's see. Yeah, when it comes to, like, I think both sides are really greedy. Don't get me wrong. Like, I get the free agency thing where teams have control of players for 6 years. That's a little excessive. But let's be honest, guys. If you take the national average in the United States on average salary on the everyday man, me and you, who it's probably around $45,000 a year. That's probably the median in the United States. When a player comes up, they automatically make $550,000 salary in their first year. It's not that bad. I mean, seriously. Like, I get if you're in New York, in California, you get taxed to all hell. So after taxes, you bring home about $220,000. Let's be honest, guys. Still a lot more than the average person makes in a year. If you can't survive for $220,000 a year after taxes, if you're in New York or California, I don't know what the hell you're doing with your money. So, I don't, how about not living above your means? A lot of these players, JD Davis and Dominic Smith, Noah Syndergaard for that matter, they lived in condos in the city that were about $7,000 a month. So, do they have to live in a $7,000 condominium in the city? Obviously, look at JD Davis and Dominic Smith. They lived in the same condo in the city. They split the rent. That was around $6,000, $7,000 a month. So, I don't see why they have to do that. And it's just crazy to me. So, I think, getting $600,000 for a player in a rookie when you come up is kind of fine. I don't see the point of all of that. So at the end of the day, guys, it's billionaires fighting with millionaires, and to us, it just seems like greed. So, all right, let's see what else we got when it comes to the comments. I see a lot of closing Diaz talks. Let's see. La Potencia, I don't know about that hater deal. I think that's too much to give up, honestly, for a closer. I don't think it's worth it. Now, would I give a top 5 prospect in like a Mauricio again and either Dominic Smith or Jeff McNeil? Yes, but not 3 of them. I think that's a little bit too much. Yes, Familiar pointing at the sky. Sports Talk, Fred, what's up, man? How you doing? Yeah, I agree, Fred. We don't really have much of a choice unless the Mets somehow get another closer. Look, I think Diaz is fine. There's not a lot of closers in the league. There might be 2 or 3 where, a guy like Josh Hader is probably a guy you probably trust in the 9th inning. But let's be honest, what team can say they trust their closer 100%? It's a volatile. The bullpens are so volatile today. They're so up and down. You never know. Diaz can have a great year this year, and in 2023 be terrible. It's just the way bullpens are now, and that's a problem. So I think we just have to deal with it. It's the 3rd year with Edwin Diaz. Let's see if he, another year older, another year smarter, another year in New York. Let's see what he can do. It seemed like he was mentally a little bit better with Lindor behind him, giving him his pep talks and everything like that. That seemed to work a little bit. So we just have to wait and see. But I'm not going to go crazy. The Mets do need some bullpen help. It seems like Familia can come back on a 1-year deal. Look, I'm not crazy about Familia, but let's be honest. Familia is not. I'd rather have somebody we know than somebody who we never seen before. We don't know if he can pitch in New York. So, for a 1-year deal, $5 or $6 million, I'm not going to go crazy. Bringing back Familia, another arm in the bullpen never really hurts. We're going to have Shohei Foley back. Who is the other guy? I forgot the other guy's name. That the right-hander that was injured but is supposed to be coming back. Not Reed Foley. There was another guy, Smith. I think his name was. I forgot his name, but there's another guy too who's coming back from injury. So, yeah, exactly. That's the thing with Diaz. Like every time Diaz comes in, I'm biting my nails. It always feels like he's going to blow the game, but when it comes to Diaz, it's very, very apparent when he comes in and he throws it. You'll know when he throws his first 2 or 3 pitches if he's gonna have a good night. If he's throwing lasers on the corners, he's gonna have a good night. If he's completely wild and not even close to the strike zone, you already know he's in trouble. You just hope that a batter swings out pitches that are balls, and we get lucky. But other than that, I always worry. But again, it's very hard to find a guy who has a very tight slider and who throws that hard as a closer. And there's a lot of teams that don't trust their closers either. There's, like I said, there's like maybe 3 closers in the entire league where teams trust their closer. So, we're not the only one. So I think a lot of the times it's just a guessing game. It's just chance. And that's how most teams deal with it. And I think that's how the Mets have to deal with it. The bigger problem is we got to bridge the gap to the closer. We lost Loop. Yes, we have Trevor May. Shohei Foley is coming back. So there's a lot of bullpen arms that we can still use, that we can bridge the gap to Diaz. I'm going to look at the roster right now to see exactly what let's look at it right here. Hold on, guys. Give me a chance. Let me just look at something really quick. All right. All right. So at the moment, this is the Mets bullpen: Seth Lugo, Trevor May, Miguel Castro, Antonio Santos, and Drew Smith. That was the guy I was talking about. Drew Smith and Shohei Foley as well, who's probably going to be a part of this bullpen. So Seth Lugo, Trevor May, and Miguel Castro are going to be mainstays in this bullpen. And obviously Edwin Diaz as the closer. So Drew Smith, he's going to be healthy. So he's another one who pitched well before he got injured. So you can add Shohei Foley. You could add Drew Smith to Miguel Castro, Trevor May, Seth Lugo, and Edwin Diaz. You need a long man, which, again, if the Mets get a Carlos Rodon or trade for Luis Castillo, now you have Tyler McGill as maybe a guy you can put as a long man in the bullpen. You have David Peterson. You have Carlos Carrasco. You got Taijuan Walker. So there's a lot of ways the Mets can go about that. So, there's a couple of guys, maybe the Mets can trade for Taylor Rogers, who is a left-handed reliever. The Mets need a left-hander. We don't have no left-handers. So the Mets need a left-hander. And I do think that the Mets can – obviously the Mets are going to get bullpen help. It's just a matter of how fast they're going to do it. When the lockout ends, you're probably going to have like a week and a half before pitchers and catchers and 2 weeks before spring training actually starts the games. So there's going to be a lot of moves, a lot of videos, a lot of live streams. for sure, because there's going to be a so much trades and free agency over as soon as the lockout ends, because it's going to be a free for all, because teams want their teams finalized as quickly as possible. So we shall see. So that is your your bullpen at the moment. All right, so La Potencia, my top targets after the lockout are Hader, Bryant, and Montas. So obviously 2 of those require trades. Now, when it comes to Hader and Montas, you already saw the deal that was proposed with Hader. So now, if that trade goes through somehow, and you trade McNeil, Dominic Smith, and JT Ginn for Hader, what are you going to give up for Sean Manaea? I mean, Frankie Montas, right? You're probably going to have to give a Mauricio, and then who else? You're running out of players to give. Now you already gave 2 top 5 prospects for 2 players. Really good players. So I don't think that it's worth. Now, I think the Mets would try to see. It really depends on what the Mets do, right? If the Mets strike out and aren't able to sign Carlos Rodon, then they're probably going to go to trade route and get in Luis Castillo, Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea, a Chris Bassett, pitchers like that. I think they're going to do everything they can to go through free agency before they make a trade. So that's why I think it's very possible that the Mets try to go after Rodon and Bryant as hard as they can, and then they can actually go into the trade market. I don't think it's smart to just go ahead and make trades when you have guys on the free agent market that only cost money that can solidify the openings that you have in your rotation and your roster. Like I said, if the Mets can try to sign Rodon and Chris Bryant, if they strike out on one or both, that's when they're going to go to. Because remember, it's not the end of the world if the Mets don't get or strike out on Chris Bryant, because there's other teams that are going to be after him, right? If the Mets strike out on Chris Bryant, now, all right, fine. You're going to keep Escobar at third. You might have to keep McNeil at second base. Not the end of the world. But if the Mets can sign Carlos Rodon, now you can say, hey, maybe we can make that trade for Luis Castillo, Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea, Chris Bassett, or, a Shane Bieber, stuff like that. There's ways that you can think about. The good thing is the Mets have options now. In the years past, before Steve Cohen, it was basically, what can we trade to get a pitcher? Because the Mets are never going to sign a Max Scherzer or anything like that, or a big-time guy. They would have to make a trade. Now the Mets have options, and I do think the Mets are going to do everything they can to sign Carlos Rodon and Chris Bryant. But they're also going to do their best. But it's possible that they won't get one of them. And if they don't, they can go that trade route afterwards. And that's what I think the Mets could do. But there's options now, and that's what we like as fans. I see all these. Stephen A., how you doing? And to be fair, Conforto did nothing on his walk-off year. Yeah, of course. He didn't do much on his year, but let's be honest, guys. If Conforto doesn't, let me give you this scenario. I'm gonna put it up on a banner. Give me 1 second. Hold on. All right. Give me a second. I'm going to put this up. We're going to discuss it. Oh, sorry. All right. Should the Mets sign Conforto to a 1-year deal? I brought this up because Stephen A. talked about it, about his bad year in his walk-off year, right? What if Conforto doesn't get any deal that he likes? It seems like the Seattle Mariners might go after him, But there's other teams as well that probably. But say if he don't like the deals that he's getting, maybe some teams don't want to give him a 4 or 5 year deal, and he goes. Maybe he comes back to the Mets and say, "Hey, I'll go on a 1 year deal. Give me a little bit more than the qualifying offer, and you give Conforto 1 year, $20 million." Say, so he plays right field for 1 year as like a show me deal. You put Nimmo in left, you got Marte in center. I do think Conforto's is going to have a bounce back year, so he might do that. I don't know if some people want Conforto back, but if you get him on a 1 year deal, I'm not going to complain about it. I just wouldn't give him a 4 or 5 year deal at the moment. But it is interesting to think about. Stoney was signed Conforto for a candy bar. Too many people look really hard at Conforto's year last year. I don't really think it's something that we can go crazy. We can go crazy about. I just think it was just a bad year, and it just amplified because it was his walk-off year. So I don't really think it's smart to look at his worst year and then look at 2020, which was his best year in a shortened season. So I honestly think, guys, that if you really look at it, go in between his best year and his worst year. And if he can hit 260, 270, 25 home runs, 80 RBIs, that's perfectly fine. We're not looking for him to bat 300. We're not looking for him to knock in 100 RBIs, at least not anymore. You got guys that can do that. So especially if you can bring in a Chris Bryant who can knock you in 80 RBIs, you get 4 or 5 guys in your lineup that knocking 80 plus RBIs, you're probably going to have a good offensive year. But if the Mets can get Conforto on a 1 year deal, I do that because it's a low risk, high reward. If he has a great year, it benefits the Mets, and the Mets have no obligation or stuck in a big contract. They can make him walk after. So I think it's a good idea if it's a 1 year deal, but we shall see. All right, let's check the comments for more good stuff. So some people are bringing up rather sign Kershaw than trade for Josh Hader. Obviously, I think it's always a better idea to spend money in free agency before you give up assets in a trade. Because I see it as this. If you sign Kershaw and he's a bust, it's only money, right? If you trade for Josh Hader and he's not good, now you lose out on a top 5 prospect. You lose out on an everyday player or 2 for Josh Hader. If you look into that deal that we showed earlier. So, Kershaw is not going to be cheap. I think Kershaw is like a plan C if the Mets lose out on Carlos Rodon, maybe not sign Kikuchi or other starters, and back at the end starters. I think Kershaw is an option, but to give Kershaw around 20 to 25 million per year is a little iffy. He has that back problem that he always has. He has a lot of wear and tear on that arm, and he's not old, but all that wear and tear on that arm is really bad, and I worry about that. Paying the guy, but again, you just paid a guy $40+ million who's 37 years old, who had arm fatigue problems, but we know Scherzer is a workhorse. He'll pitch through nagging injuries. So we don't worry about that because he's a bulldog. Kershaw, on the other hand, when he's hurt, he's out. So that's why I think people are a little bit more excited about Scherzer than they would be Kershaw, because Scherzer is a bulldog. And, even though Scherzer's 37 years old, he still pitched extremely well for the Dodgers when they traded for him. So, if we get 2 really, really good to really, really solid years from Scherzer in the 3-year deal, I take that in a heartbeat. But I'm a little iffy on Kershaw, even though I did a video about Kershaw and what the Mets should give as a contract. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But what would you be willing to give Kershaw? That's what I'm curious about. Let me tell. All right. Here's the question, guys. What type of contract would you give Clayton Kershaw? Roberto, how you doing? Jose, how you doing? So I wouldn't go beyond 20 million per year. No more than 3 years. I wouldn't go higher than that. But again, there might be somebody out there that might give, even the Dodgers, they might give 22, 23, 24, 25 million per. I'm not willing to do that with Clayton Kershaw. Now, when he's healthy, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. But he's very injury prone with his back, a lot of miles on that arm. That worries me. You have about, let's see, 40 million, 20 million, 20 million. So you're going to have about $85 million between three pitchers on your payroll for just 1 year in DeGrom, Scherzer, and say Kershaw. $85 million on just your rotation. And every one of them are over, you're going to be 32 or older. So that's worrisome. But again, the Mets are clearly making a 3 to 4 year plan with this team to win a World Series. All the deals they're doing, the Marte, the Escobar, the Canas, the Scherzer, every deal is 2 to 4 years. So they're telling you that their win now frame is 2 to 4 years. Anything after that is up in the air. We'll figure it out then. But that's the other thing when I'm not going to go crazy. Now, besides Beatty and Alvarez, I think you have to look into trading for a big time either bat or arm, because the Mets are telling you that they're in this 2 to 4 year plan to win a World Series or more, right? That's what they're doing. And the bigger thing that you have to look at is the Mets have money now. So if things don't work out and the 2 to 4 year plan is maybe the Mets make the playoffs over the next 3 years. 3 years in a row. First time in their history. 3 years in a row making the playoffs. In a row, right? They don't win a World Series. They might make it, but they don't win a World Series. Now, Escobar's gone, Khan is gone, Max Scherzer's contract is up. DeGrom is 36, 37 years old now. Carrasco's contract is up. Maybe JT Ginn, maybe Matthew Allen are about to come up. But now the Mets have money to sign players again to make this team still relevant, including guys like Beatty, who's probably going to be up, Alvarez, who's going to be up. So now you still got Alonso, whose contract's going to be up. So you're probably going to extend him. Now you got Alvarez, who's coming up. You have Beatty. You got Lindor. You got Brandon Nimmo, which it seems like the Mets probably will extend him as well. So you still got a core. And now you have guys from the minors and Beatty and Alvarez who's coming up. Depending on if the Mets trade Mauricio or not, he might be up. Vientos, if he's not traded, would be up. So there's a lot of things that we can look at. But the Mets have money now to make up for what they lose in Scherzer. Marte would be gone. Escobar, Kana. Scherzer would be gone. There's a lot of ways to look at that. And I think that's why Met fans are excited, because there could be stability when in years past there wasn't. When a trade didn't work out, or a contract that they signed a big player didn't work out, or a guy in a farm system didn't work out. the Mets were in trouble because we knew if those deals and those rookies don't pan out, the Mets are not going to spend on a big time star to help this team continue to get better. Now we don't have to worry about that. And that's the thing that I think is most important to look at nowadays. You see, but here's the thing when it comes to Kana, he's a lot better than people are giving him credit for. Yes, he's a 230 hitter, right? He'll hit 15, maybe 20 home runs. He's not a great player, but he's a solid player. And, he's a better defender than Dominic Smith. He's not great, but he's better than Dominic Smith, right? But I think that people are looking at, I think Kana's a lot better than people are giving him credit for. Not saying he's going to be a great player, but again, we're not looking for him. He's going to bat 6th and 7th in the lineup anyway. He's going to be right above James McCann. It's going to, James McCann and Kana are going to be, depending on the DH, they'll probably bat 8th and 9th or 7th and 8th. So, those are the guys who are role players. Guys who, if they have big years, great. But we're not looking for Kana to bat 280. The Mets didn't get Kana to bat 290, hit 30 home runs, and knock in 90 RBIs. They got him because overall, he is a better player than Dominic Smith when you look at it as a left fielder. I'm not talking about Dominic Smith as the first baseman. I'm looking at it as a better player than Dominic Smith. We don't know what Dominic Smith. You can't keep on putting these guys out there and not knowing what these guys are when you have championship aspirations. We don't know what Dominic Smith is. We can't keep on putting these guys out there and pray that they're going to be good. At least Kana has a couple of years under his belt where all right, this is what you expect. What do we need to do to make this roster better or make this lineup better when you already know Connor's better defensively than Dominic Smith? Let's be honest. Dominic Smith had a really bad year. People went crazy for Dominic Smith because he came back in 2019, the last game of the season, hit a walk-off home run against the Braves. A shortened season when Dominic Smith had a great year, but it was only 60 games. The same thing with Michael Conforto. People went crazy that Michael Conforto had a great year in 60 games. Dominic Smith has not had a consistent, really good year in his career yet. He had one good 60-game season, just like Conforto. But people would want to get rid of Conforto, but want to keep Dominic Smith. I don't understand that. And in 2019, Dominic Smith was hurt. In 2020, came back, had a very good year. But you have to remember, we played the NL East a lot in the 60-game season, right? So when you see the same teams and the same pitchers over and over again, you expect the batters to have better years because they've seen the same pitchers. In a 162-game season, you've seen a hell of a lot of pitchers. And I think that's a big reason why Dominic Smith didn't have a good year, because he only saw NL East pitching. Or AL East pitching. He didn't see a lot we didn't see none of the Central, none of the West in the AL or the NL. So, and you also have to remember, Connor's coming from the American League, where he was in the West, where they had a lot of good pitchers. And, the AL had a lot of better teams than the National League. So I think he can hit 250, 260, in my opinion. So people who are quick to get rid of Michael Conforto are not quick to get rid of Dominic Smith. When Dominic Smith and Michael Conforto had a really good 60-game season, but had a bad 2021, but yeah, people want to get rid of Michael Conforto and want to rather have Dominic Smith in left field than Kana, but yet Kana is a better defender than Dominic Smith, and we don't know what Dominic Smith is, and the Mets can't afford to wait around and see what they can do. the Mets have championship aspirations. If you want Dominic Smith on the bench as a role player, a guy who could play first base if there's a DH, put Alonso at DH, or give Connor a day off, put him in left field, you could do that. What else we got? Let's see. Scherzer said he doesn't view this as his last contract. Yeah, but let's be honest. He's going to be, 40 years old when his contract ends? So, yeah, he might still be pitching, but what type of dominance will he be? I don't know how dominant he will be. People look at 18 home runs and 15 home runs like it's nothing. It's when you have to look at the 15 home runs that kind of hit or the 18 home runs that kind of hit. They might have been in big moments for the A's. People just like, oh, well, Connor only has 15 home runs. Well, of those 15 home runs, how many did he actually hit where it put the team in the lead? Or it was a game-winning home run, or it was a tie-in home run. You have to look at scenarios as well. There was a lot of home runs that Alonso hit that were basically garbage time home runs. The same thing with J.D. Davis. The same thing with Francisco Lindor. Same thing with Dominic Smith. Right? Same thing with Jeff McNeil. There was a lot of garbage time home runs when the Mets were up by a lot or the Mets were down by a lot. A lot of the times there was garbage home runs. So you also have to look at the scenarios. Out of those 18 home runs, maybe 5 of those 18 were go-ahead home runs for the A's. And another 2 were tying home runs. You got to look at that too. I'm not big on Eric Chavez. I mean, he's a hitting coach. Honestly, he was a good player. But again, I don't see much of a difference of having a hitting coach. I just don't think you can have a hitting coach who is just analytically driven. I think, but you heard what Eric Chavez said in one of his interviews, right? He says that he don't care about average. That worries me. He's a launch angle guy. He's a guy that looks to hit for power. He's not a guy that cares about average. Because let's be honest, Eric Chavez was never a 270 hitter. He was a 230 career hitter. So I don't really think that. I think of it this way. Let the hitters hit. Let them use their own capabilities, their thought process. But every now and then, when you see a little bit of a swing that's off, maybe he's a batter stepping into the bucket, or he's a little late on pitches. He's in and out on the ball, trying to keep his elbow in, or flailing, his butt is out when he swings, out in front a lot. That's when the hitting coach comes in and says, hey, you're doing this. I seen it on video. Try to fix it. Stuff like that. The hitting coach is not going to make anybody a great hitter. It will help them mentally when they're struggling. That's it. I'm telling you, when the Mets made those 3 signings, and Connor, Escobar, and Marte, all on the same day, late at night, I said from the beginning, Eduardo Escobar is going to be the better signing. I was more excited about Escobar than I was about Marte and Connor, because Escobar is a solid player. He's very good defensively. He's not going to hit 50 home runs, even though a couple of years ago he hit 30 for the Brewers. He can hit for power. He can hit you 25 to 30 home runs. He can bat you 270. He's a very solid player, and a lot of Met fans, he's going to be a fan favorite. He's a good clubhouse guy. He plays every day. He can bat 270. If he hits for power, he can hit you 20 to 25 home runs with no problem. I think Escobar is going to be the best signing out of the Connor, Escobar, and Marte sign-ins. I think he's going to be the best of the three. That's a good call, Stoney. Exactly. We're going to go back to that just now. People go crazy about keeping Dominic Smith. But yet, if you look at the last 3 years with Michael Conforto and Dominic Smith, they are very similar in numbers-wise. In 2020, that was Conforto's best year. In 2020, it was Dominic Smith's best year. People loved it. People were happy. 60-game season, guys. In 2021, both of them had terrible years. Let's be honest. Dominic Smith had just as bad a year as Michael Conforto, but yet people can't wait to get rid of Michael Conforto, but they want Dominic Smith to play left field every day. How does that make sense? At least Conforto, we know, is probably not going to have another bad year like he had last year. I don't know what Dominic Smith is. In 2019, before Dominic Smith got hurt, he wasn't very good. In 2020, he was good, but it was a 60-game season. You throw that out the window. In 2021, he was terrible. But yet, everybody's up in arms that Dominic Smith should be playing every day and the Mets shouldn't get rid of him. But who cares about Michael Conforto? Who, let's be honest, if you want to say who's probably going to have a better year next year, I guarantee you Michael Conforto is going to have a way better year than Dominic Smith. It's crazy how people think. People don't think about why they want one player over another when the two of the same players had the basically terrible years, but yet it's okay to keep this player but not that player. It's a little odd to me. Potencia, look, Marte's going to be good, but he's not a young guy either. So, he's going to be, he's a mid-30s, 32-year-old center fielder right now. In my opinion, Marte should be the leadoff hitter. A lot of people are talking about that, and I'm going to bring that up. That was one of my last things that I wanted to talk about. What would the Mets lineup be if the season started today? There was a couple of things that people were talking about. Nimmo or Marte, who do you want as the leadoff hitter, right? I want Marte to be the leadoff hitter. One, because he can steal bases. Two, he's a 300 hitter. And those two combinations are big for a leadoff hitter. He gets on base, right? The reason why I want Marte 1 and Nimmo 2 is because one thing Nimmo does better than any other player on his team, he takes pitches. He works the count. What do you need in a leadoff hitter when your number 2 works the count and takes pitches? It gives Marte the opportunity to steal bases. He stole a lot last year. Nimmo is the perfect number 2 hitter. Marte is the perfect leadoff hitter. He steals bases. He can bat 300. He got a good on-base percentage. Nimmo and Marte, 1-2. Stalin Marte number leadoff. Nimmo number 2 is a perfect combination. We can argue about 3, 4, and 5 in some way or another. 3, 4, or 5 is going to be Lindor, Alonso, and pick your guy, whoever your next guy at the moment. If it's going to be a JD Davis, who is a DH, if it's going to be Escobar, 3, 4, 5 is going to be something like that. So, leadoff hitter, I think, should be Marte, and Nimmo should bat number 2. And I'm not big. I'm not big on any hitting coach, honestly, but I understand what you mean, Steven. Merlin Folk. Look, if the Mets sign Carlos Correa, I don't really care about the pick. Honestly, you throw Correa at third base or second base, and I'm fine with that. But I don't think that's going to happen. He just went over to the Boris agency, and he's looking for something $330 million or more. Look, if the Mets want Carlos Correa and Steve Cohen approves of it, I'm not going to complain. I don't care about the pick at that point. You're going to have Carlos Correa, who's under 30, 6-7 year deal, or maybe 8-year deal. I take that in a heartbeat. He's a clutch hitter. He's always clutch in the playoffs. He's a great defensive player, great hitter. There's nothing to complain about. I do that. Yeah, well, exactly. That's why when you talk about what the Mets are trying to do here, when it comes to the same age, contracts, the Mets window to win a World Series is obvious now. They're making it pretty obvious, a 2 to 4 year plan. You know, obviously, if you get a Bryant or you sign a Correa, you're going to give a 5 to 8 year deal between those two guys. You know, they're younger, so they're going to be around after the 4 years. But it's obvious the Mets' 2 to 4 year plan is exactly what they're doing. We need another power hitter. I agree. You know, that's why there's options out there. You know, if the Mets get Kris Bryant, I think Kris Bryant's a lot better player than people giving him credit for. You know, the problem with people not really wanting Kris Bryant is because they don't watch him every day. I'm telling you guys, I'm a big Kris Bryant fan. I follow him a lot. I always have him on my fantasy. So I check his stats every day. I watch a lot of the Cub games. I watched a lot of the Giants games because I had him on my fantasy. I check him out all the time. Kris Bryant is one of my favorite players. People don't watch the Cubs and the Giants every day to see how impactful Kris Bryant is on an everyday basis. They only look at his numbers and say, oh, he only batted 260. Oh, he only hit 22 home runs. He only hit 70 RBIs. Why are you going to get a guy who you're going to pay $180 million for? But he's more than that. Not only can he play every position on the diamond when you need him. You have an injury, Kris Bryant can play that position. If Alonso goes down, God forbid, Kris Bryant can play first base every day. Escobar goes down, Kris Bryant can play third base. Kris Bryant can play center field if Marte goes down. Kris Bryant is an asset, is versatile. And if he bats you 270, hits you 25 home runs, and hits you 80 RBIs, that's a hell of a lot more than what other Met has done over the last couple of years. You know, Kris Bryant makes teams better. It's just that simple. The problem with the Cubs weren't their offense. It was their pitching and their bullpen. So I think the Mets get Kris Bryant. This lineup is one of the most dangerous lineups in Major League Baseball. That's how good they would be. If you put Kris Bryant, Lindor, and Alonso in 3-4-5, not including Marte as your leadoff, Nimmo as your number 2, and then you go down in your 6th position is Escobar. Then, you know, you look at who else is left. Let's see. Depending on the DH, you know, if you still have McNeil, J.D. Davis, James McCann, it's a very nice lineup. All right, Steven, have a good day. Tony, Bryant's the guy, guys. I'm telling you right now. There's a reason why over the last 2 years, the Mets been trying to get Kris Bryant. And if it wasn't for Jacob deGrom being injured last year, the Mets would have traded for Kris Bryant and Javier Baez. It's just that simple. And there is no mistaking that the Mets are on board with Kris Bryant. It's just a matter of, can the Mets be the team to outbid everybody else? Because I think they want Kris Bryant. I wouldn't go that far when it comes to Babe Ruth type of material, but Kris Bryant's a very good player. And I think people are overlooking how good he actually is. So here's an interesting thing. It has nothing to do with the Mets, but there was some talk about the Rays playing half their home games in Tampa and half their games in Montreal. Well, MLB just rejected that offer. So the Rays are going to play all their games in Tampa. But I wouldn't be surprised in the coming years the Rays move to Montreal. I think there should be a team in Vegas. Hey, I have no problem taking a road trip and going to games in Vegas. Go to the games at night or go to the games during the day and partying at night. That's fun. Baseball needs a team in Vegas. It's a hell of a lot of fun to have a football team and a hockey team there. I've been to a Golden Knights game. It's a lot of fun. You go to a game at 7, it ends at 10. Go to the casinos. It's perfect. Again, Seiya Suzuki can sign still because he's not part of the union. But there was some talk that he's going to wait until the lockout is over to sign. But there is some talk about Suzuki going to Boston, which kind of makes sense for them. Jose, we just talked about it, but let's talk about it again. The latest about the lockout, the MLB Players Association is putting together an offer or proposal that's going to go to the owners. They haven't gave a proposal yet, but supposedly their proposal is going to be sent sometime next week to the owners. So let's hopefully get some good news on that, Jose. So that's the latest at the moment. The Players Association is putting together a proposal to give to the owners. So we'll probably hear something about that next week. Boise, Idaho, no. Honestly, if a team's going to go, MLB team go to Idaho, I'm probably not going to travel there to a Mets game in Idaho. Sorry. I'm not. I mean, it would be cool because, it's a different state that I never been to, and it's a ballpark I obviously never been to. I mean, so that would be the only reason. I mean, what the hell's in Idaho besides potatoes? So I don't really think, there's been rumors about Montreal, Vegas. I believe, who else was another one? I think it was Oregon. Maybe. Just Vegas, Montreal. That's basically the only two places I think baseball can end up for if it's an expansion team or it's a team that leaves the city. Like Tampa. It seems like if Tampa doesn't get their new stadium in downtown, they're probably going to go elsewhere. Vancouver, I don't know if I don't know about that. I think if baseball goes back to Canada, besides Toronto, it's probably going to be Montreal, most likely. I don't think they're going to go anywhere else because they got to build a stadium. Also, it's probably going to have to be a dome. Vancouver is freezing majority of the year, so I think Montreal would probably be the only option in Canada for a new team. I think Montreal deserves a team, but Vegas would be my number one. I think that makes so much sense. You already got a hockey team. The Raiders just moved there. So you put a baseball team there. You got 3 major sports there, and it kind of makes sense. You're always going to get fans because even if they're not diehard fans, you're always going to get the tourists who want to go to an event, a baseball event, a basketball, football event, a hockey event. And probably at some point, there's probably going to be a basketball team as well that play at T-Mobile Arena. They already got the arena built. They just need a team. Yeah, Merlin, I think Vegas is going to be a location that. Now, there was talk about the A's moving to Vegas, but there's been news about that they got a step closer to get in a new stadium by the water in Oakland. So in the Bay Area. So if they get that deal done, because that's the big deal. The A's don't want to move. They want to stay in Oakland. But they have to get a new stadium. That's what they have now is the Coliseum is a mess. It's not a good stadium at all. So I think it's smart if they don't get that, if that deal the stadium doesn't get approved, they can probably move to Vegas. They got enough land. There's a lot of room. There's a lot of desert. They could put that stadium in. Winnipeg, that's more of a hockey town. I don't think it's a big baseball town, to be honest with you. Look, when it comes to Canada, I think Montreal is the only way they're gonna go. They're not gonna go to Vancouver. Look, they want to be a successful team there, where fans show up. These fans will show up in the beginning in Vancouver, in Winnipeg, but they're not diehard baseball fans. Probably, can they develop a fan base? Yeah, sure, but I don't think MLB is going to take that big of a risk. They're already losing fans. They're not bringing the young fans there. I think Montreal is the only option in Canada. Buffalo doesn't make sense because you already got the Mets and Yankee fans there. Yeah, they have a football team, the Bills. They got the hockey team and the Sabres, but that's hard to develop a fan base like that. They can always build the dome. That the weather's probably not going to be an issue, but I don't know. I'm kind of iffy on Buffalo because you got a lot of Met fans and Yankee fans there. Brooklyn, yeah, that's going to be hard as well. You're going to have the Nets fans that are not really Nets fans. They're just, hey, let's go to a basketball game. We live in Brooklyn. Let's go. That's basically it. Somebody said Billings, Montana. Again, I want to be rushing to the airport to go to Billings, Montana to watch a baseball game. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah, they're showing on SNY on Baseball Night in New York about the new era, the new fitteds, about the two teams on the hat. It has, one logo of one team, one logo of another team. No. I'm just gonna make it a little loud. I'm curious. Ain't talking about nothing much. Well, guys, I know this is probably going to be a 2 or 3 hour thing, but again, there's not a lot to talk about, right? We talked what we had to talk about: Mets lineup, MLB lockout, Mets trades, proposals, free agency. If you guys want to talk about something else, let me know in the chat. We keep on talking for a little while, or we'll just end the stream. But let me know what you guys, if you want to talk about anything else, we can continue to talk, or I'll say good night to you guys. But to recap, what I'm gonna do going forward with the channel, I'm going to do a MLB The Show simulation for the 2022 season on PS5. I'm gonna do recordings of the game. It's gonna be about 35 to 40 minutes long. I'm gonna do the fast play, so it's not gonna be a long out 3-hour gameplay. It's going to be about no more than an hour long, so that's going to be fun. With that, I'm going to do my own commentary of the simulation. I'm not going to use the video game simulation. It's going to recording the commentating. I'm going to use my commentating, so that would be fun. And then when I'm going to do about 2 to 3 games a week, the recording is going to go up. It's going to be about a week and a half from now when I'm going to set everything up. I got to set up the rosters and everything like that. But when we do that, I'm going to do that. I'm going to commentate the simulcast, the simulation. And then when the season's over, we'll look at the record. of the simulation, see what the record is, see how far the Mets get in the playoffs in the simulation, and MLB The Show, and go from there. So I hope you guys would enjoy that. Obviously, it's not going to take away from the videos I do on a regular and live streams. It's just going to be an added addition to the channel. So hopefully you guys would check that out. We'll have fun doing that. Sony asks how long I've been a Met fan. Unfortunately, my whole life. My dad was a Met fan, so I kind of fell into that fandom. My mom was a Met fan, so yeah, that's the reason why. I grew up. I was born in '87, so I just told you my age. So I was born in '87, a year after the Mets won the World Series in '86. So you can blame me for the Mets not winning. Ever since I was born, the Mets have not won a World Series. So I've seen 2 World Series in 2000 and 2015. I have not seen the Mets in my lifetime make the playoffs 3 years in a row. That would be Mets history if that happens. Yes, I do live in New York. So you were 3 years old when the Mets won the World Series. I was not even thought of yet. But yes, I do live in New York City. I've been a Met fan my whole life. My dad my dad has a baby picture of me, or I have a baby picture when I was like 1 in a Mets baby outfit with a big Mets blow up baseball. I'd love to find that. If I find that, I'll post it next time I go live to show you guys. But yeah, I was like 1, maybe 2 when they took that picture. So I was born a Mets fan, unfortunately. And if you really think about it, being born in the late 80s, early 90s, when, basically after 88, the Mets were garbage until like the 97, 98 year. So in those years, I could have easily been a Yankee fan, but I wasn't. I stuck to my ground, stuck with my dad, stuck with the Mets. Steven talked about Manny Machado. Ugh. You got to trade for him. It kind of makes sense because of connection with Machado and Showalter. But, it probably won't cost a lot to get him from the Padres because the Mets would take on the contract. But I don't know. I guess that's an option if you lose out on Chris Bryant and maybe the Mets want to make another big splash. He's a good player, not great anymore. I would, that's not bad. Yeah, Stoney, I did. I stuck with the Mets. I like misery. I like to be disappointed. All my teams that I root for are kind of a disaster. I'm a Cowboys fan, and of course they lost to the 49ers last week, so that sucked. Obviously, I'm a Met fan. I'm a Knicks fan. I'm a Rangers fan. The Rangers are doing good this year, but they haven't won a Stanley Cup since '94. So, and I was only 6, 7 years old when the Rangers won the cup. So I wasn't really a huge fan at the time. I'm 7 years old. I want to play video games. I want to play with toys. I wasn't gonna, worry about watching hockey on an everyday basis. But I was a Ranger fan. I am a Ranger fan. Oh, your dad's a Cowboy fan. Your dad's a Chiefs. Oh, you're a Chiefs fan. Okay. Well, let's see if they can beat the Bills, huh? That's gonna be a good game. That's for sure. La Potencia. My introduction to the Mets fandom was 06, 07. Well, that's pretty good years, even though 06 they lost to the Cardinals. 07 they choked. 08 they choked. So, but that's not a bad era to start your fandom. The team is very good. They had superstars in Wright and Reyes, Beltran, Delgado, Floyd, Boston Bruins. Ooh, that's interesting. You live an hour and a half. Oh, so you're way upstate. Okay. Where exactly, Stony? So are you past like Monticello and all those places? Well, Merlin Full, let's hope so. Well, let's all hope that they have a good year in 2022. Let's hope. So I'm assuming you got snow, Stoney. You get a lot of snow. Sledge, what's up? Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Yes, so that's crazy, Stoney. You're a Cowboys fan who is basically an hour and a half away from Brooklyn. I mean, from Buffalo, and you're not a Bills fan. That's interesting. J Ram. Yeah, that's a possibility, but I think if the if the Mets lose out on Chris Bryant, obviously Jose Ramirez is an option. So again, you're gonna have to think of a trade like a Mauricio and a McNeil and possibly another top 20 prospect to bring J Ram here. But it's possible. Again, anything is possible with this team now. With the money we have, and obviously the Mets can make any trade they want. Okay, Bradford, Pennsylvania. Okay. A foot of snow. Oof. I'd be so mad at myself. I can't deal with snow. I can't wait to move to Florida. That's my goal is to move to Florida in the next year or so. Zach Wilson, the next Brady. Good luck with that. My dad's a Jet fan, so I'm, I feel bad for my dad, but I hope Zach Wilson does well for my dad's sake. I have been a Mets fan since 1966. Well, that's cool. That's cool, Jose. 5 minutes from the border. All right, that's cool. So right now I'm watching Mets Hot Stove right now on SNY. They're talking to Todd Zill. It said which Met will benefit from a change in coaching staff. Uh, Everybody, because Rojas was a joke. Tyler Mays, Merlefeld, not a bad idea. He's not great, but he's a back of the end rotation guy. Like I said, I think the back end of the rotation is fine. You got Tyler McGill, you still got Carlos Carrasco, you got Taiwan Walker, you got David Peterson. I just think you need that number 3 starter. Even though I think Taiwan Walker is going to have a really good year, first full year last year after his injury. So it's not shocking that after he got past he pitched well past his pitching total from the last couple of years with his injuries. So I think this year he's going to have more stamina, and that's going to help him go through the whole year. Walker got great stuff. It's just that he got tired in the second half. So I expect him to have a really good year. And the next one they're talking about in Mets Hot Stove, Mets have 3 prospects on Baseball America's top 100 prospect list. Obviously, that's Alvarez, Beatty, and Mauricio. So that's nice to see. Alvarez is 13th overall in Major League Baseball top 100. Beatty is 39, and Ronnie Mauricio is 92. Just thinking, that's another thing you have to look at with Ronnie Mauricio, guys. Ronnie Mauricio was the number 1 prospect in the Mets system 2 years ago. Then last year, he was number 2. This year, he's number 3. So he got passed over by Alvarez and Beatty. And 2 years ago, Ronnie Mauricio was in the top 50 in Major League Baseball top prospect list. Now he's 92. Now that doesn't mean a lot. Mauricio has been progressing better, but he got passed up by Alvarez and Beatty in 2 years. So, but hey, that's cool. As much as people talk about the Yankee prospects, they only got 3 in the top 100 as well. So, I think that's something to think about. So Alvarez is 13th in the top 100 MLB prospects. Beatty is 39, and Ronnie Mauricio is 92. I think Familia is more possible than Conforto. I think Conforto is gone, to be honest. Oh, see, Merlin, I didn't even know that. 2.3 is pretty damn good. Let me see. I just want to check something out. So he's for the Reds. Let's see. So Tyler Mahle is 26 years old, so he has one more year left on his deal. Looking at his stats, he didn't have a 2.3 ERA in 2021. He had a 3.75 ERA. He started 33 games, which is good. Pitched 180 innings. Struck out 110, which is pretty damn good. Gave up 24 home runs, 64 walks. It's not bad numbers. He was 13-6. He was one of the better pitchers for the Reds. That's not a bad idea. He had a 3.75 ERA, so it's not terrible. He had a 2.7 ERA in his first year at 22. He's 26 years old. He has one more year left. That's not a bad option if you want somebody who's on the back of the rotation, who's not going to cost you a lot of prospects. So, but 3.75 is not terrible. It's not, but that's an option. VR is an option as well, but it's a matter of what the Mets do, because if you really think about it at the moment, right? You have, if the Mets do trade Jeff McNeil, right? You got Dominic Smith and JD Davis as your bench right now. So you have one guy who can play first and left field, and you got JD Davis who can only play third base. So the Mets are gonna need another infielder and one more bench player for the outfield. So I think the problem with Jonathan VR is that if a team saw what he did last year with the Mets, as good as he played, they might give him a 2 or 3 year deal to be a starter. And any player is going to take that deal to be a starter on a major league team. But if the Mets say, hey, VR, we'll give you a 2-year, $50 million deal to be a utility guy, be a versatile player as he was last year, why not, right? VR can play third base, he can play second, he can play short. So that's an option. I think the Mets would try to get him, but I think VR is going to find another place to start every day. Alba, Carlos, Max Scherzer is a good player, of course. Well, 24 home runs and 180 innings is less than 1 home run per game. That's not terrible. If you look at the Mets, most of them are over 30. So, and it was less innings than that. I think Carlos Carrasco gave up like 15 home runs, and he only pitched like 2 months. So, it's not terrible. All right, guys. So, it was a very good live stream. We talked about the MLB Lockout, which the Players Association is going to give a proposal to the owners any day now. We talked about trade proposals, Luis Castillo, Josh Hader. Talked about Jose Ramirez. Talked about free agency, Chris Bryant, Carlos Rodon. Talked about a new addition to the channel. I'm going to do a simulation on MLB The Show for the 2022 season. I'm going to do the simulation. It's going to be about between 35 and an hour of gameplay for each game. I'm going to post the videos on my channel. I'm going to do the commentary on the game during the game. So we'll have fun doing that. We will see the record when the season ends in the simulation and how far the Mets go in the simulation in the playoffs and the World Series. We will look at that with my commentary during the simulation. So that shall be fun. So hopefully we'll have a good time doing that. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. It should be starting with the simulations probably sometime next week or the week after, sometimes before February. So we'll have fun doing that. And then, when the real season is over, we can see if it matches up with the simulation. So once again, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. This was a really good stream, guys. We talked about a lot. Let's hope the lockout ends in about the next 2 weeks or so. I appreciate everybody's support, guys. Check out my next video that I'll probably do either tomorrow or Saturday. I'll see you guys on Tuesday with another Mets hot stove. Appreciate all the support, guys. Keep on checking out all the videos that I've been posting. The recent video about Kershaw. I did videos about trade proposals, about Kyle Schwarber. Please check that out, guys, if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support, guys. I'll see you guys next time. As always, Met fans, let's go Mets. Have a good night, guys. Hopefully the lockout ends soon. Have a good night, guys.